Welcome back to Global Politics Today, the show where we slice through the noise and pull out the most vital, often surprising, insights from the stories shaping our interconnected world.
Great to be here.
Today, we're plunging headfirst into a situation that's not just making waves, but really threatening to redefine one of the most critical geopolitical relationships of the 21st century.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the escalating and, frankly, pretty unprecedented tariff war that has erupted between two of the world's largest democracies and, most dynamic economies, the United States and India.
Yeah, it's a big one.
This isn't just some minor economic dispute. It's an unexpected and, sharp pivot in a strategic partnership. And the ripple effects are already hitting global markets and countless livelihoods. Our mission today is, crystal clear. We're going to unpack the intricate complexities behind these recent, honestly astonishing tariffs.
Right.
We're drawing directly from our core source material, India-U.S. tariff war, economic impact, and diplomatic rift.
A very timely piece.
Exactly. We're going to sift through every detail, every projection, and every diplomatic nuance to understand not just their immediate economic ramifications, but also the profound diplomatic fallout that has suddenly put this vital relationship under immense, arguably unprecedented strain.
It really has.
Our goal is to arm you, our listener, with the most important insights and the surprising facts you might not find it is just a quick news scroll, so you can walk away truly well-informed about the high stakes involved here.
And this truly is a watershed moment for both the United States and India. I mean, their relationship, it's been carefully cultivated over decades, hasn't it?
It really has, built on shared values, strategic convergence.
Shared democratic values, yes. A growing strategic convergence and increasingly intertwined economic interests. It's foundational to global stability and prosperity, especially in the Indo-Pacific region.
Absolutely critical there.
So any disruption, particularly one as severe, as abrupt, and frankly as overtly aggressive as a tariff war of this magnitude, it demands more than just headlines. It requires a deep, nuanced understanding of its origins, the underlying motivations, and its potential trajectory.
Where it might go next.
Precisely. This isn't just about trade numbers or a single policy disagreement. It's a profound test of global economic interdependence, diplomatic resilience, and, the very nature of trust between two rising powers at a pivotal moment in global geopolitics.
That trust element feels really key here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's try to pinpoint the exact spark that ignited this whole economic standoff. It's quite stark, isn't it? And it certainly caught many by surprise.
It did indeed.
President Trump's announcement of a staggering 50% tariff on Indian goods. Now, to truly grasp the scale of this, just imagine any product you buy suddenly costing half as much again, just because of where it came from.
It's almost unimaginable in modern trade.
A 50% levy on imports is, by all accounts, an almost unheard of measure in major global trade relationships, especially, between supposed strategic partners.
Right. It's not a subtle signal.
No, this isn't a mere adjustment or some kind of strategic nudge. It's a policy decision that, it screams aggression, not negotiation. And it's not just a threat to be debated. It has a very specific effective date, August 27, 2025.
Locked in.
Exactly. This move is unequivocally among the steepest, most punitive levies ever imposed on a U.S. trading partner. It signals a profound declaration of economic disapproval, almost a form of economic punishment from the U.S. side. And the stated reason for this drastic measure, India's continued purchase of Russian oil.
That's the official line.
On the surface, it appears to be a direct response to India's energy procurement choices, in the context of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. But as we dig deeper, as always, we start to see layers of complexity.
There always are, aren't there? What's truly fascinating here is indeed the sheer magnitude of a 50% tariff, especially when we look at the context of international trade,
Yeah, compared it to normal levels.
Most trade relationships, particularly between friendly nations, operate with tariffs in the low single digits, maybe even zero, right? The whole aim is to facilitate mutual growth.
To make trade easier, not harder.
Precisely. A 50% levy effectively doubles the cost of Indian goods entering the U.S. market, making them instantly uncompetitive and, for all practical purposes, just pricing them out completely.
Killing demand overnight.
Exactly. This represents an incredibly aggressive and punitive shift in trade policy. It moves far beyond typical trade disputes into an arena that, many analysts are describing as basically economic warfare.
That's a strong term, but maybe accurate here.
And India's immediate diplomatic response perfectly underscores this perception, doesn't it?
It does. They were quiet.
Their foreign ministry was swift to condemn it as selective and unfair. And this isn't merely diplomatic rhetoric. It cuts right to the core of India's argument.
Which is?
That other major buyers of Russian oil have not faced the same penalty.
Right, that's the crucial point of comparison.
This raises crucial and complex questions about the targeting of this policy. Why India? Why now? Especially when other major economies, including some in Europe and notably China, also continue to purchase Russian energy.
So it feels targeted.
It does. This selectivity suggests that this might not just be about Russian oil. It could be a calculated test of a crucial democratic partner's resolve, maybe a strategic signal to other major energy consumers, or even, potentially a risky domestic political play that jeopardizes long-term strategic alliances.
Lots of potential underlying motives.
The underlying insight here might be that this isn't solely about Russian oil. It could be a deliberate attempt to force a clearer alignment in a rapidly evolving multipolar world, using economic leverage as the, primary tool.
Using the economy as a weapon, essentially.
It marks a discernible shift in U.S. foreign policy, one that appears to prioritize immediate compliance with specific American objectives over perhaps the nurturing of sustained trust and long-term partnership.
Short-term goals over long-term relationships.
Potentially. And the feeling of being singled out, of being treated disproportionately compared to other nations engaging in similar trade, that inevitably erodes diplomatic trust. It casts a long, chilling shadow on the perception of fair play in international trade.
I can see how that would rankle.
It fundamentally makes India question the very nature of their strategic partnership with the U.S., particularly when facing such an overtly punitive and unexpected measure. This level of economic pressure can leave lasting scars on a bilateral relationship. You don't just forget being hit with a 50% tariff out of the blue.
No, you really don't. And here's where it gets really interesting, especially when we move beyond the sort of policy announcements and look at the immediate tangible consequences on the ground in India.
Right, the real-world impact.
The impact of these tariffs is not some distant economic theory. It's already rippling across various sectors, hitting people where it hurts the most. Let's zoom in on a powerful, tangible example, the gold and jewelry sector.
A huge industry for India.
Huge. India is not only one of the world's largest consumers of gold, but also a massive exporter of intricately crafted gold jewelry. And guess who's their biggest customer?
Let me guess, the U.S.
Exactly. The U.S. market accounts for nearly 30% of India's entire gem and jewelry trade. That's a massive portion of their export pie. So when you suddenly slap a 50% tariff on those goods, the effect is immediate and devastating. We're seeing reports from Ahmedabad, a major jewelry manufacturing trading hub.
Yeah.
Gold prices surged to a record $1,004,300 per 10 grams.
Wow, a record high.
This isn't an abstract number. This is a direct, measurable surge in local prices, driven by the sheer uncertainty, the immediate effective closure of a huge export market, and the resulting disruption to the entire supply chain.
The whole system gets thrown off.
At the same time, jewelry exports have plummeted, creating an immediate crisis. This directly threatens not just the large manufacturers, but the livelihoods of countless artisans, skilled craftspeople, small family businesses, people who have built their lives around this trade for generations.
Generations, exactly.
It's a powerful, tangible example of how a high-level policy decision made thousands of miles away in a distant capital translates directly and painfully into real-world economic hardship for ordinary citizens and specific, vibrant industries.
Mm-hmm.
It quickly becomes not just about profit margins, but about jobs, about families, about, community survival.
It really humanizes the numbers, doesn't it? Absolutely. Yeah. And when we connect these specific impacts, like the jewelry sector, to the broader economic indicators, we truly begin to grasp the so what for the entire Indian economy.
The bigger picture.
Consider the stark picture painted by Fitch Ratings. They show the effective U.S. tariff rate on Indian goods has just exploded.
Exploded.
From a relatively minor 2.4% in 2024 to a staggering 20.7% in 2025.
20.7%, that's incredible.
It isn't just an incremental increase, it's an almost tenfold leap in import duties.
Tenfold.
Yeah. In practical terms, this means that almost every Indian export product, from the vibrant textiles we mentioned to essential pharmaceuticals, now faces a significantly higher barrier to entry into the lucrative U.S. market.
A huge wall suddenly went up.
Exactly. Indian exporters are now faced with an impossible choice. Either absorb these dramatically increased costs, which will decimate their already thin profit margins,
Wiping out profits.
or pass them on to U.S. consumers, which immediately makes their products uncompetitive against alternatives from other countries.
So either way, they lose.
Pretty much. Either way, their competitiveness in the crucial U.S. market, which has been a pillar of their export growth, is severely compromised. It puts immense pressure on their entire economic model. And the projections from major financial institutions are equally sobering. They paint a consistent, if slightly varied, picture of impending economic slowdown.
What are they saying?
Well, UBS, a major global bank, estimates that a staggering $35 billion of Indian merchandise exports to the U.S. are now at risk.
$30 to $35 billion.
Yes. And to put that into perspective for you, this figure represents nearly the full extent of last year's impressive $87 billion in exports to the U.S.
So almost everything they sold to the U.S. last year is now at risk.
That's the UBS estimate. It's a massive, potentially crippling chunk of their overall export economy that could just evaporate overnight.
That's terrifying for those businesses.
UBS goes further. They detail a potential hit of almost 1 full percentage point from India's GDP growth over the next 2 years.
1% of GDP.
Yeah.
That sounds significant for a country like India.
It is. 1 percentage point might sound small in isolation, but for an economy of India's size, which is constantly striving for rapid growth to lift millions out of poverty, that represents billions of dollars in lost economic activity, significantly fewer jobs created, and a direct impact on the pace of national prosperity and development. Moody's, another leading financial services company, offers a slightly different, though still deeply concerning, expectation. They see a slowdown of some 30 basis points, that's 0.3% in India's GDP growth, easing to around 6% in fiscal 2026.
So, still a hit, just maybe not quite as large as UBS predicts.
Right. Still a notable deceleration for an economy that really needs to be firing on all cylinders. Goldman Sachs also suggests a knockoff of as much as 0.6 percentage points from GDP growth.
Okay.
Though, interestingly, they remain cautiously hopeful of a diplomatic resolution, which kind of underscores the uncertainty that permeates these forecasts.
So there's still hope it could be walked back.
There's hope, but the forecasts reflect the current reality. The varying degrees of these projections are important because while the exact numbers differ, they collectively suggest a strong consensus among major global analysts. India faces a significant, almost unavoidable economic slowdown.
Right.
And the very real potential for severe downturns in key, often labor-intensive sectors. The consensus is clear. This isn't a minor bump in the road. It's a major economic headwind.
A headwind is putting it mildly, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's not just the macroeconomic numbers, is it?
Mm-hmm.
It's also the very specific sectors feeling this acute pain. Analysts are already pointing to key sectors that are especially vulnerable.
Yes, certain industries are definitely more exposed.
We're talking about India's thriving textile industry, a major employer,
Huge employer, yes.
as well as auto components, which are crucial for global supply chains, and significantly, pharmaceuticals.
Ah, pharmaceuticals. That's a big one.
India is often referred to as the pharmacy of the world, right? Being a major global player in generic pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely. A critical supplier for many countries, including the U.S.
So if these critical exports to the U.S. are disrupted, it's not just an economic hit for India. It could have serious implications for U.S. healthcare consumers as well, potentially leading to higher drug prices or even supply shortages for essential medicines.
That's a really important potential consequence on the U.S. side, too.
The alarm bells are truly ringing. I mean, some analysts have even gone as far as to liken the potential impact to a trade embargo.
An embargo that highlights the severity.
It really does. It's not just a tariff. For certain goods, it could effectively act as a near blockade. And we're already hearing urgent pleas for government support from the ground.
From specific industries.
Yes. Take the shrimp exporters, for instance. They have cited a staggering $2 billion worth of exports threatened by these new tariffs. They're directly calling on the Indian government for immediate intervention and assistance.
$2 billion in shrimp alone. Wow.
When you consider the domino effect within the economy, if these critical sectors face significant disruption, it's a sobering picture. We could see widespread job losses, especially in labor-intensive industries like textiles, gem and jewelry, seafood processing.
Places where many people work.
Exactly. There could be a sharp decline in manufacturing output across various industries and a general chilling effect on both domestic and foreign investment, leading to a broader erosion of economic confidence across the board. The ripple effect from these tariffs extends far beyond just the initial cost calculations.
That's a critical point. The specificity of these impacts truly brings the economic theory to life. And it's not just about the numbers, it's about the underlying structure of the relationship, as you mentioned, with pharmaceuticals.
Right, the dependency.
The U.S. relies heavily on active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, and finished generic drugs from India. A disruption here isn't merely an economic inconvenience for India. It could pose a public health challenge for the U.S., raising questions about supply chain resilience for critical medicines.
So, a vulnerability for the U.S.
Potentially, yes. Similarly, with textiles, these tariffs don't just affect large corporations. They hit small to medium enterprises, often family-run, and the millions of low-wage workers, many of them women, whose livelihoods depend directly on these export orders.
Human cost again.
The sudden cessation or severe reduction of these orders could lead to social unrest and a significant rise in unemployment in specific regions. This underscores that a trade war, while seemingly about numbers on a ledger, fundamentally impacts the most vulnerable populations and the stability of entire communities. It's a testament to the fact that economic policy at the highest levels has immediate and profound human consequences. It's not just lines on a graph.
So given this backdrop of economic tremors, this very real pain, what does this all mean for the delicate diplomatic dance between these two giants? The sources reveal a truly fascinating dynamic, almost a clash of wills, deeply rooted in national identity and perceived sovereignty.
It's become more than just economics.
Definitely. On the Indian side, there's a dominant tone emanating from officials and industry voices alike, and it can be best described as defiance and hurt pride.
Hurt pride. That feels significant.
It does. This isn't surprising given the context of being singled out and facing such a punitive measure after years of building a strategic partnership. We hear strong statements, such as that from Defense Minister Rajnath Singh.
What did he say?
He unequivocally called India the world's most dashing and dynamic economy, asserting with, real nationalistic fervor that it would remain undeterred by foreign pressure. This stance, it isn't just bravado, is it? It signals a very clear message about India's willingness to compromise under duress.
It suggests they won't just roll over.
Exactly. It suggests that while the economic pain is acknowledged and felt acutely, the perceived insult of being targeted in this manner, especially after their previous good faith efforts in trade talks, runs incredibly deep.
The process matters as much as the outcome.
It highlights that this situation isn't just about economics or specific trade imbalances. It's also about national sovereignty, India's historical non-alignment, and its burgeoning identity as a rising global power that expects to be treated as an equal, not as, a subordinate.
As a partner, not someone to be dictated to.
Precisely. The depth of that perceived insult could be a major, perhaps insurmountable barrier to any quick resolution, turning what might have been a negotiable dispute into a matter of national honor.
Which makes diplomacy much, much harder. That's precisely right. The phrase hurt pride is key here. It moves beyond a purely transactional economic disagreement into the realm of national dignity and strategic autonomy. And this is where the details of the collapsed trade talks become absolutely critical. They reveal elements of significant miscommunication or perhaps a deliberate and calculated miscalculation by the U.S.
What do we know about those talks?
We learn that promising trade talks, which actually included very substantial offers from India, things like a willingness to institute zero tariffs on a range of U.S. industrial goods.
Zero tariffs? That's a big concession.
Huge. And even concrete plans to significantly increase energy and defense imports from the U.S. Those talks collapsed unexpectedly.
So India was putting offers on the table.
Yes, this isn't India refusing to engage. It indicates that India was actively engaged in trying to bridge gaps and build the relationship economically, offering concessions that could have been very beneficial to U.S. businesses. But then comes the critical detail that fundamentally altered the landscape. Indian officials had expected tariff caps around 15% during negotiations.
Okay, so they had an expectation.
This wasn't a whimsical figure. It suggests an understanding, a baseline that they believed was mutually recognized, or at least was the upper limit of reasonable negotiation. Instead, the U.S. completely blindsided them with a sudden 25% tariff, which was later doubled into the current 50% punitive rate.
Blindsided, that word again. From an expected 15% to 25%, then 50%.
Exactly. The term blindsided is particularly potent here. It implies a profound breach of trust, an unexpected and severe deviation from established diplomatic norms and the spirit of good faith negotiation.
It feels like pulling the rug out.
It's not just an escalation, it's an escalation that felt like a betrayal of the negotiating process itself.
So this blindsiding element, the jump from an expected 15% to a sudden 50%, what does that suggest about the U.S. approach here? Was it a calculated, aggressive move, kind of a shock and awe tactic, designed to extract maximum concessions, believing India would just capitulate?
That's one possibility.
Or was it maybe a genuine misjudgment of India's red lines? A failure to truly understand the depth of their commitment to their perceived sovereignty and their unwillingness to be dictated to on core strategic decisions like energy procurement?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It speaks to the heart of the current diplomatic crisis. It could be interpreted in a few ways. One perspective suggests it was indeed a deliberate shock and awe tactic, an attempt to demonstrate overwhelming economic power to force immediate compliance.
Flexing economic muscle.
The U.S. might have calculated that India's economic vulnerability would compel a quick surrender to avoid the severe economic fallout we've been discussing. However, that carries immense risk, as we're seeing, by underestimating India's resolve and, well, that nationalistic pride factor.
A potentially big miscalculation.
Another interpretation points to a potential misjudgment, perhaps an internal U.S. policy shift that didn't fully appreciate India's strategic autonomy or the depth of its historical ties, particularly with Russia, which are far more complex than just a simple economic transaction.
Underestimating the history and complexity.
The U.S. might have misread India's willingness to absorb economic pain for the sake of maintaining its multi-aligned foreign policy. Regardless of the intent, though, such a move could irrevocably damage future trust between the two nations.
That seems unavoidable.
It makes it incredibly difficult to restart negotiations on any front, or even to engage in good faith discussions on other critical strategic fronts, like, shared security concerns in the Indo-Pacific.
Right, it spills over.
When one party feels genuinely blindsided by what they perceive as an unfair and disproportionate escalation, especially one that undermines previous diplomatic efforts, the diplomatic path forward becomes immensely complicated. It can poison the well for years to come, turning potential allies into wary, distant partners.
Turning partners wary.
This is not just about a single tariff, it's about the erosion of the very foundation of diplomatic trust.
Right. And while India is undoubtedly feeling the immediate and acute crunch of these tariffs, it's crucial to remember that a trade war is rarely, if ever, one-sided, is it?
No, they almost always cut both ways.
There are always repercussions that circle back, impacting the initiating country as well. So what's the view from the U.S. side? How is this policy being perceived there, both domestically and strategically? Our sources hint at some domestic reactions, including how late-night TV hosts like Stephen Colbert famously mocked the move.
Yes, the more expensive clocks.
Exactly, jokingly urging Americans to set your clocks back to more expensive.
Yeah.
While it's delivered as a joke, it perfectly encapsulates the underlying reality, doesn't it? These tariffs are going to directly contribute to inflationary pressure on household items across America.
Absolutely. Costs go up for importers.
And when the cost of imports goes up by 50%, American businesses will inevitably pass a significant portion of that burden onto consumers. Higher prices for everyday goods, from clothing to, as we discussed, certain pharmaceuticals. This isn't theoretical. It impacts every American's wallet. But the impact extends beyond just sticker shock at the grocery store, surely. Think about the intricate web of global supply chains.
Very complex webs.
Many American businesses, large and small, rely on components or finished goods from India, particularly in sectors like textiles and pharmaceuticals, which we know are heavily affected by these tariffs.
Key inputs for U.S. companies.
So if those supply chains are suddenly broken or made prohibitively expensive, it forces American businesses to scramble. They have to seek out new, potentially more expensive, less reliable, or maybe less efficient suppliers.
Disruptions and delays.
Exactly. This can lead to significant production delays, reduced availability of products on shelves, and ultimately higher operating costs for U.S. businesses, which in turn feed into higher prices for consumers and decreased competitiveness for those American companies on the global stage.
It's a ripple effect domestically, too.
So the idea that this is a cost-free or even a net gain move for the U.S. is simply not borne out by economic reality or, frankly, the historical lessons learned from past trade wars. The collateral damage is often widespread and unanticipated.
History suggests trade wars rarely have clear winners. And connecting this back to the broader geopolitical implications, the long-term health of U.S. foreign relations could be severely tested, perhaps even irrevocably damaged in some ways.
The strategic fallout.
We hear a stark warning from former U.S. official Kurt Campbell. He is a seasoned diplomat, deep experience in Asian affairs, a key architect of the U.S.'s Indo-Pacific strategy.
So someone whose opinion carries weight.
Definitely. He emphasized unequivocally that America's most important relationship in the 21st century is with India.
That's a huge statement. The most important relationship.
It is. This isn't casual rhetoric. It speaks to the immense strategic value the U.S. places on India as a crucial democratic partner in the Indo-Pacific, a vital counterweight to rising powers, and a critical player in global stability and maintaining a rules-based international order. Campbell's direct advice that India must not bend the knee to Trump's pressure tactics is equally telling.
He advised India not to give in.
That's what the source indicates. It reflects a significant perspective within parts of the U.S. foreign policy establishment. It suggests an understanding that pushing India too hard, backing them into a corner, could backfire spectacularly.
Why?
It risks alienating a partner whose strategic importance, particularly in, say, containing influence in the Indo-Pacific, far outweighs the immediate grievances over Russian oil.
The bigger picture outweighs the specific issue.
If we connect this to that bigger picture, this raises an incredibly important question about the long-term strategic costs for the U.S. How might alienating a key partner like India impact regional stability in the Indo-Pacific?
A region the U.S. is heavily focused on.
Exactly. India is absolutely vital to various U.S. strategies, including the Quad Alliance, that's the U.S., India, Australia, and Japan, and broader efforts to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific.
A cornerstone partner.
A damaged or fractured relationship could disrupt these initiatives, potentially creating a vacuum that other geopolitical actors might exploit. Or it could even push India into closer alignment with other blocs, maybe Russia or China, despite India's historic commitment to strategic autonomy.
Which would be a major strategic setback for the U.S.
It could fundamentally alter the balance of power in a critical region, making the U.S.'s own strategic objectives far more challenging to achieve and potentially leading to a more fractured, less stable international environment. It's a delicate balancing act. And a trade war like this risks undermining far broader and more vital security and diplomatic interests for the U.S.
It sounds like playing with fire, strategically speaking. And what you're highlighting there is that profound ripple effect, isn't it? Where economic tools aimed at one specific outcome can inadvertently trigger this cascade of unintended and far-reaching consequences across security and diplomatic spheres.
Precisely. It truly speaks to the interconnectedness of our world. Things don't happen in a vacuum.
So as we've seen throughout this deep dive, both of these colossal economies, the U.S. and India, are now navigating an abrupt and significant disruption. And the stakes could not be higher for both sides.
They really couldn't.
For India, the risks are substantial and immediate. They are facing the grim prospect of potentially slower economic growth, the very real threat of lost jobs across multiple vital labor-intensive sectors like textiles, gems, seafood.
Real people, real livelihoods.
And its significant weakening of their export competitiveness in a global market that is already incredibly challenging and fiercely competitive. The economic pain is not just real, it's already being acutely felt by millions. And for the U.S., while the immediate impact might feel less direct to some, maybe more diffuse, the costs are equally significant and potentially more insidious in the long term.
The slow burn effect.
They're facing disrupted supply chains that permeate various industries, escalating consumer prices that will hit every American household's budget.
That inflation point again.
And perhaps most critically, a deepening of diplomatic rifts with a nation that has historically been and unequivocally remains a vital strategic partner for Washington's geopolitical ambitions.
Undermining that key relationship.
This isn't just about balancing trade deficits. It's about the erosion of trust, the potential fracturing of an alliance that has been carefully and painstakingly cultivated over decades, and the weakening of a democratic front at a time when global democracies face increasing challenges.
A very critical time for democratic unity. What's fascinating here, really, is that the future now hinges almost entirely on whether diplomacy, which has clearly been strained to its breaking point, can somehow de-escalate this tariff war.
Can they pull it back from the brink?
The path forward is incredibly murky and fraught with challenges. Will the U.S. relent, perhaps realizing the strategic cost of alienating such a crucial foundational partner in its Indo-Pacific strategy?
Or will they double down?
Or will India find a way to mitigate the economic fallout while resolutely maintaining its defiant stance on energy security and strategic autonomy? It's hard to see an easy compromise right now.
Seems like both sides are dug in.
The potential for the cost of this confrontation to ripple across the global economy is not just theoretical, it's a very real danger if a swift and decisive resolution isn't found.
Affecting everyone, not just the US and India.
Exactly. This raises an incredibly important question for all of us to consider. What tools do these nations have beyond tariffs and economic pressure to exert influence? And how might this conflict fundamentally redefine their relationship for years, perhaps even decades to come?
A fundamental shift.
It could be. Will this lead to a more resilient, diversified global supply chain, forcing nations to reduce their reliance on single partners? Or will it simply create more friction, distrust, and fragmentation among major global players, leading to a less stable international order? Those are the big questions hanging over this.
We've truly taken a deep dive today into the complex and high-stakes tariff war that has erupted between India and the United States. We've dissected its surprising origins, its immediate and far-reaching impacts that are already being felt across sectors and households, and the delicate, often contentious diplomatic dance playing out behind the scenes.
The sheer economic figures we've discussed today, I mean, from the dramatic surge in gold prices in Ahmedabad that directly impacts countless artisans, to the threatened billions in critical exports like shrimp and textiles that underpin entire regional economies.
It's staggering.
It highlights just how quickly top-level policy decisions can translate into very real, tangible, and often painful consequences for entire industries and countless individuals. It's a stark, compelling reminder of the intricate, fragile, and deeply interconnected nature of our global economy.
And it leaves us with a truly compelling thought to consider, doesn't it? In an increasingly interconnected and multipolar world, where geopolitical lines are constantly being redrawn, where does economic leverage truly end, and the imperative for long-term strategic partnership genuinely begin?
A crucial question.
And what ultimately is the true, comprehensive cost of winning a trade war, especially when that victory comes at the expense of alienating a vital strategic partner and potentially undermining broader, more critical, long-term security diplomatic objectives?
What does winning even look like in that scenario?
Exactly. Something for you to mull over as these tensions continue to unfold on the global stage.